All right, we're down in the infield here at Nashville Super Speedway. We just got done with what was an amazing event. And I got to say, I've been at 3 Monster Truck Challenge events this year. We brought you TMB TV coverage from a couple of them. St. Louis was phenomenal. Tonight's racing was on a simplified version of a St. Louis-style race course. It actually turned out to be some of the best racing we have seen all year. In fact, a semifinal round appearance, I believe it was, or perhaps it was quarterfinals between Mark Hall and Carl Van Horn. Absolutely phenomenal. It was just an absolute throwdown between those guys. Every time those two hit the track, it's like magic happens. But you know what? You don't got to take it from me. Let's talk to Rich Schaefer, General Manager of the Monster Truck Challenge. Rich, man, I was all smiles all night. I saw you smile a little bit. There were some happy people in the stands. What did you think of the racing tonight?
It was fun. You know, we've been doing a lot of different courses, but we went back to something pretty basic, you know, trying to minimize the amount of dirt we used here and the amount of damage to this infield, because it's a pretty fragile grass on top. It's like sliding on ice, and the trucks slide out on it and they can't get a grip on it. So we tried to keep it a little bit less technical this year, and it was just fun to see those guys on that big of an open space where they could really let the big Hemis run against those guys, you know. And it's been a couple years since we've done a track like that, and it was fun to just get back to the basics of the old school race and just mash the pedal wide open till you get to the end, then slam on the brakes, let the sparks fly. And you know, the corners caught the guys off guard a little bit because they weren't expecting it to be that slick, and that's what really made that difference in some of those races, with the guys just couldn't get it out of the corner.
You know, we had a truck here called Equalizer, but really this track should have been called the Great Equalizer. Not one driver all night was consistent through every round. Not one driver had all his passes without mistakes, from our winner all the way to our runner-up and everybody in between. Everybody made a few mistakes and stuff. And even with a couple trucks suffering unfortunate breakage, we still had an awesome racing show. How did you really, you know, Steve Sims, he's definitely improving. We talked about that. But were you really expecting on this kind of a, you know, a Hemi-friendly track that Steve Sims would actually knock off Mark Hall in the finals?
No, not at all. And I think what kind of happened is that the Hemi trucks, a couple of the guys at the Hemis, they just kind of overpowered a little bit, and they couldn't keep it straight going into this jump. I guess would be the third obstacle on the track. They couldn't get it lined up in time, and it really just opened the door for guys like Sims. And you've got to give credit to a guy like Steve Sims as far as just natural talent. You look at the amount of time he's been in the seat and been in the sport at all. The guy's got a lot of natural talent to him. The guy's got game.
Steve Sims is almost like an old-school monster truck driver because he's soft-spoken. You know, I interviewed him some tonight, and it's almost like, you know, Steve, pick the volume up a little bit. He's not one of those real raucous drivers. He lets his truck and driving speak, as a lot of guys used to back when, you know, Monster Truck Challenge was young. Yeah,
and he comes from that same territory, you know, that North Carolina part of the world where so many of the great drivers from the sport that had that same personality. You never saw a whole lot of emotion out of Gary Porter. He just went out there, did his job, let the truck do the talking for him, and he ended up in the winner's circle quite a bit, and that's what Steve's going to do. That guy's going to be in victory lane a lot.
You know, Gary Porter's nickname back in the day was Mr. Consistency. And, you know, Steve Sims, that was really the key to his win tonight. He was fairly consistent throughout the night. One of the most consistent players all night long. And I don't know, is he going to be Mr. Consistency too now?
Yeah, he is, but, you know, he's so consistent in the racing portion of it. And then we take the intermission, you come back in freestyle, and it's like a completely different guy in the truck. I mean, him and Carl Van Horn both, that's why they're actually good teammates. They're both really smooth in the racing. And when it comes to freestyle, you really don't even know what to expect out of those guys at all. And it looked like he was taking some pretty bad hits with the truck tonight. A lot of the guys were having some problems getting things really dialed in for via freestyle. We didn't see a lot of the big air that we normally see out of some of those trucks. Just like Kohler, he couldn't really turn it loose, but it was great to see Kohler finally get his drive shaft problems fixed. That's really the first time since he's had that truck that he's been able to open up wide open and stay in the throttle. So now that he's got, you know, the drive shaft problem fixed with that new jack shaft he put in it, now you're going to see Avenger turning it on this fall on a lot of these shows coming up for other promoters around the country.
I think you're absolutely correct, and I remember, you know, we both kind of bug-eyed each other when Kohler went into a turn during the second round of racing. He cut that turn with his rear steering first, and it's probably the most impressive turn I've ever seen Jim make. And he's not bad on a turning course, he's just usually not consistent. But my goodness, if he can dial that truck in and do turns like that, I mean, man, the world is his stage then, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing about Kohler. I think Kohler's been really underrated as a racing driver. He came a long way. I mean, he made his reputation on freestyle, but the last couple of years, you look at Memphis last year on a straight line race, he put it down a couple times on those guys. He can drive in racing a lot more than what he gets credit for. And he's just, like you said, he's not quite the consistent driver that you see out of some of the other guys. But when it's Kohler's night, it's Kohler's night. And I'd say that you're going to see a bunch of good shows out of Kohler's crew this fall with that new truck.
Now, here's a storyline. We saw Mark Hall in the finals. We kind of picked him as a favorite in the finals. Now he has gone winless the entire year of Monster Truck Challenge competition, yet he went undefeated last year at all the major races he was at, in the series last year. So, I mean, what a turnaround that is. And Jimmy Cretin wasn't here to finish off the season either. So, I mean, it's kind of an interesting weekend there. I mean, does that surprise you at all that Hall wasn't able to pull off a win all year long?
Well, all year long, yeah, it surprises me that he just, it's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. I mean, how many times have we seen it in other sports? A team can go to the World Series or can go to the Super Bowl, and the next year they don't even make the playoffs. And that's kind of what it feels like for Halls. They're still a great team. They got great equipment, and it was the fastest truck out here. He just had the slightest bobble out there, and that cost him the win overall tonight in the racing. It was just one little thing makes the difference. Just like one key trade on a baseball team can be the difference between going to the series or going home early.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to wrap it up from the infield here. We want to thank Rich Schaefer for all of his hospitality all year long for the Monster Blog. He's rolled out the red carpet for us, and we deeply appreciate that. And Rich, whatever may come over the next few weeks, I know we'll be in touch with you on it, but if nothing else, any events you're going to have next year, we look forward to being there. So thanks for having us this year.
There'll be events. There will be events.
Well, we're going to leave it at that here for tonight, but we'll stay tuned to the Monster Blog. We'll have more coverage for you and some more information from Rich over the next few weeks as things develop. But if nothing else, he's put on what could be one of the greatest summers of monster truck racing this sport has seen in well over a decade. That's all from Nashville Super Speedway. I'm Kyle Doyle along with Colby Marshall and Candace Marshall, our production assistant this weekend. That's all. Thanks to all you guys for watching, and we'll see you in Indianapolis here in just a few weeks.
Here, birdie, 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 birdie. Here, birdie, 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 birdie. Here, birdie, 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 birdie.